That question of what have I seen you in is a terrible question.
Have you been in anything that I know? See?
Yeah. So it's such a vague question as well. You know, there's like screens on gas pumps at gas stations. I think you probably see it on that.
I 100% will lie. It's not because I'm embarrassed to be an actor. It's because I don't want to be in a 10-minute conversation explaining to them the intricacies of the industry. I'll tell them I'm a heart surgeon. Growing up with Chinese immigrant parents, instead of playing video games with my friends, he would drag me to the local community college, go into an empty classroom, and teach me college math. And I was in like 5th grade. Sent me a book for my birthday, and it was Letters to a Young Actor. And I was like, oh my God.
That's a big step.
It was a huge moment. All right. Welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. I'm Ikon Song, and this is
Rían Kelly, how you doing?
What's up, buddy? We have new episodes wherever you find your podcasts. We have video on YouTube, on Substack. Follow us at Actors Guide Podcast on all social media for fun clips during the week.
All right, man.
Happy holidays, everyone. Wherever you are, thank you for joining us. It is the most dreadful time of the year.
No, it's not. Get out of here.
Today's episode, we're talking about how actors can handle the holidays like a pro. Any awkward questions? What have I seen you in recently? Those type of questions.
Yeah.
The ones you love. You love those questions too.
I do. I love the question. What would you have been in that I would have seen?
We're going to talk about the ins and out of that. What are some things that we can do? What are some tips to kind of make these scenarios possibly less awkward, less uncomfortable? This episode's for you.
You think you're ready for leading roles? You feel you got that star power? Fuck you. Seriously, who do you think you are?
Welcome to Your Humility Coach, here to always keep you grounded. With this app, you'll have your very own personal coach keeping you humble.
Are you going to wear that? Don't know if it's ever going to happen. You think you're better than everyone else?
This holiday season, give the gift of humility. Now in Espanol.
Pinche pendejo. You want to start again with a less pessimistic intro?
You know, it's funny. I actually wanted to give my singing another try. It's the most dreadful time of the year. I know. I'm working on it.
If you said terrible, you would have had more syllables to work with, because wonderful is 3 syllables.
Oh.
Terrible time. Not that I think it is. I think it is a wonderful time.
There we go. That actually works out pretty good. You know, a lot of people are wondering, when does the holiday start? The industry actually starts winding down beginning of December for the most part.
I don't know what it's like. I don't really know what Thanksgiving is like for a lot of people. For us, that's Christmas. Christmas is a big holiday. And I love it. I love Christmas, because Christmas is a time when a lot of Irish people who are living abroad come home. So you get to see everybody. And, you know, Ireland is a party for the few weeks leading up to Christmas. So I love the holidays. It does slow down. And like when it does slow down, I don't love that. It's the same reason I prefer weekdays to weekends, because I feel like anything can happen on a weekday. Whereas weekends, everybody's off. So you can get an email that can change your life on a weekday, but you're less likely to get that on the weekends, yes, I feel.
Well, it's also some people don't like vacations either, you know what I mean? It kind of is an interrupt into the flow of just their routine, their schedule, those type of things.
Probably a slightly different attitude towards them here. But I do hear people talk about the holidays as like, I just spend 5 days with my family. Personally, I love that, because I love getting to see my family. But I also live thousands of miles from them, and I any chance I get to go home to Ireland and see my family is brilliant. I don't know if that's everybody's experience, but I feel like you have a good relationship with your family as well.
Yeah. And to be honest, this is exactly why I wanted to get into it. As far as the holidays, I absolutely love the holidays. Part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this, and we haven't ever talked about it in the past, is you and I are I want to say very lucky, and also I want to say pretty rare. I feel like it's not. The reason why we haven't talked about it is it's barely helpful, because it's like, oh yeah, of course it's great for you two, because you have great relationship with your parents. They're really supportive of your careers. That's such an oddity. You know what I mean? It was so not like that for me, and it took me years. I talked about this in the past. I joke with Rían. Over my dead body, will I ever talk about my feelings or any personal things, this is the one time where I'm actually going to talk about it. I won't turn this into a entire, gab therapy session, but the whole reason why I even got into acting in the first place was it was kind of a rebellion. Growing up with Chinese immigrant parents, my dad was doctorate, PhD, math professor. He didn't let me read books. Anything that was not math related.
What?
I know, exactly. I tried to get a job at Barnes & Noble, just completely kiboshed the entire thing. He thought it was a rebellion. And I would never say this to him because he wouldn't remember. He was teaching me math nonstop growing up. My summers, instead of playing video games with my friends, he would drag me to the local community college, go into an empty classroom, and teach me college math. And I was in like 5th grade. So this is my entire relationship with my dad. Obviously, we played tennis, and he trained me in tennis, and we got to connect through that. But not until getting into college, I was like, oh, that's what he was trying to show me. So that's a snippet. I know I'm jumping in full throttle, but I just wanted to give you...
No, that's really interesting.
I know this is a harsh look at Chinese immigrant growing up. It's very stereotypical. But the thing is, it all worked out, and that's kind of like what I'm getting to, where I saw the other side of it. And I just want people to know that, hey, I get it.
Hi guys, if you're just if you're just joining us, we're just live streaming Econ's therapy session. So very math focused. That's an interesting take on it. Like, because it was a distraction from maths, or okay,
100%.
And do they feel differently about literature and stuff now, or was that
dude's reading all the time. He has, you could see if you're watching on video, I'm in a library with 1 million books. This is a fraction of his books. He has like 5 copies of Homer's Odyssey right here. Dude's reading poetry. And I'm like, dude, who are you? They are, he came around. He absolutely came around. And
Really?
I'm fortunate enough to see the other side of it. There was one moment my dad sent me a book for my birthday. And it was Letters to a Young Actor. And I was like, oh my God. It was like,
it's a big step.
It was so out of left field. It was a huge moment when it comes down to it, especially for Chinese immigrant parents. They just want to know that I'm okay and I'm eating. Can he survive? They're just worried. So yeah, let's get into just kind of like the practicality of all this, because if you're driven in the industry and you're also away from home, you're kind of twiddling your thumbs and kind of waiting for the next thing.
Well, that's interesting, because I just in terms of, so my experience of it, my family, none of my family are in the industry. You know what I mean? Nobody's in the film industry, but they are. My parents are both journalists their whole careers. There's a lot of journalists and writers in my family. That's kind of the common thread throughout both sides of my family. So that was the sort of background that I grew up in. So literature was very important, and books were very important, and that was like, so when we were kids, I would read every night for years, up until adulthood, up until I had a phone that destroyed my brain. I would read before bed to fall asleep every single night.
So that's actually a pretty good trick.
That's I didn't think it was a trick at the time, but so that was the background that I came from. But my parents have always been incredibly supportive. I'm very fortunate. I do realize that that's not always the case for people. So they have always just wanted us, I think, to do whatever it is that that makes us happy or that we're passionate about. And me and my sister both have like sort of unconventional jobs. Like, I'm an actor and she's a performance psychologist, which is, kind of a niche profession. But so I grew up in that very supportive environment, and I do feel for people that have to justify themselves. Now, it doesn't mean that you get those questions for outside of my immediate family. Like, I have gotten those questions, and what are you up to, and what are you doing, and feeling those questions, and it's uncomfortable. But I'm grateful that I didn't have to justify anything to my family, to my parents, and that. one other thing that you mentioned there is waiting for something to happen. I think waiting is the most powerless kind of a state. I try not to find myself, and I do. I don't navigate it well all the time, but I try not to be waiting for anything, and it's very hard not to, because especially when you've auditioned for something and you haven't heard, or you're pinned for something, or it's hard not to wait. But I do find there's no power in waiting for anything. So I think the challenge for me, I think, is to find ways to just be creative in the meantime, and make, work on the sort of business side of this thing. So when we hit periods like this between now and the end of the year, when not a ton happens and you're waiting for January to come and it starts up again, I said waiting again. I think the challenge for me more and more is to like find stuff to do with people and be creative in those times. And look, last year I was fortunate enough, right before the last day before kind of everything shut down for Christmas, I booked a job that started in February the following, of this year, and that was sort of the last day of close of business for 2024. So I do know that this is a tricky time for people. But I'm so fascinated by your parents' or by your dad's approach to that.
Yeah, very unorthodox. And also for those that didn't know, he was very geared on me going to math grad school, which he's still holding out hope. He's literally still holding out hope.
Okay, well, still time.
I will say my mother was so the exact opposite. It's hilarious. And their entire relationship is really cute and interesting and funny. But she was the exact opposite of how, extreme he was. So they really balance each other out. Let's get into some practical ways. Let's say, for example, you didn't have a job. If you have victories up the wazoo, obviously, we know what 2025 was in the industry. If you have victories up the wazoo, parties are blast. Talk about your victories. You have plenty to talk about, and so on. If you don't, that's when, hey, this might be an awkward conversation. These type of conversations can happen all the time. You can be at a dinner party with people that you're not very close to, and the conversation comes up, oh, you're an actor. What have you been in? What have I seen you in? Like, that's an encounter that we could get all the time. It might be a little more loaded with family relationships depending on your family dynamic.
Talked about this before, but I think it's worth mentioning. There's a funny thing. There's a real self-esteem thing attached to this, because it is an industry, I think, that a lot of people have an opinion on, whether they know about it or not, whether they're, in it or a part of it, or whether they're even aware of it. Because the end product is something that people are encouraged to have an opinion on. What's a good film? What's a bad film? What's a good show? Oh, you should watch the show. It's great. Oh, this was terrible. I didn't like this. So it is something that, because it's art and it's for public consumption and it's entertainment and it's a business. It's a lot of different things. But I think that that question of what have I seen you in is a terrible question. We talked about this.
Exactly. I wanted to dive more into that. I wanted to dive more into that for sure.
Because I find, for me anyway, it puts me on the back foot a little bit in terms of I feel like then I'm now justifying what I just said to you by telling you what I've been in to prove my credentials as an actor. I've been in this, or I've been in that, or you might have seen this, or and there's not too many jobs that I think that applies in, like, oh, you're a lawyer, what cases have you won that I would know about? You know what I mean? Or like, it's or even in terms of like, who are your clients? Who are your advertising? Now, maybe that's a common question for people in advertising, but it's a kind of a unique thing, especially if you meet someone in an environment that's not the professional environment. If you meet them, say you're doing a side job, or say you're working in a restaurant or behind a bar, or you're in retail or whatever it is, and it comes up, it can feel sort of desperate to prove, oh, I'm doing this now, but I'm really this. And I always think that it takes such an amount of tenacity and sort of courage to keep going in an industry which often costs money to stay in when you're not working, There are a lot of costs involved in it, and work a side job and still pursue it and put all of this time in. So it's kind of seen as a bit of a joke or a bit of a negative thing when people are like, oh, you're an actor. Oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah, out of work.
What restaurant?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the out of work, the trope of the out of work actor. And or people will say, they'll phrase it in such a way, oh, you're trying to be an actor? Yeah. You know what I mean? But when you zoom out and when you look at all of the elements that it takes to stay in this thing, it shows a tremendous amount of courage and tenacity to stay in it and to keep giving yourself the opportunity, because a lot of the costs involved in this industry are placed on actors. Like we pay for casting websites. Casting directors don't pay for casting websites. We pay for them. Recently, when casting networks decided to try and charge agents, there was an uproar, and there was a pushback against that. And now they're not charging agents. We're still getting charged though. So we still bear the brunt of a lot of the costs of headshots, of classes, of marketing yourself, of being in business. So you need a lot of skills to stay in this thing. You need a lot of different skills, and you need a lot of sticking power. So I think that these types of conversations, we need to talk about this because...
And welcome to Rían's rant.
Yeah.
No, this is it. This is exactly it. You basically you rattled off essentially 3-4 scenarios. So context for devil's advocate of these different scenarios. Is this going to be am I just trying to get through this dinner party, enjoy my ham, and let's just have a good weekend? Or is this a teaching moment that I need to teach someone, whether it's an aunt or a acquaintance, an insight into my world and industry? So those are two different worlds, and I can easily I'm learning this over the years of which mode am I in, because I can easily kind of coast and just get to small talk, chit chat, don't give them too much, give them the right answers, and get them off my back, and let's just enjoy our dinner. Or if you catch me on a bad day, I'm going to destroy your party. I'm going to have a 3-hour conversation. So that's kind of like the mode that I've learned. I heard someone discuss this, an actor discuss this. I'm like, that's actually spot on. A really great way to. I found myself in both scenarios where not every moment is a teachable moment where I need to teach this person how the industry works. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I think my relationship to it has changed as well over the years. It used to be completely contextual, like or sort of circumstantial. If I had just done something and someone asked me, I can point to that. I could go, oh, I just did this exactly. Or whatever, which is a nice place to be in if you're working or if you're... Yeah. I think the challenge for me is to embrace the question at any time, because I'm very proud of being an actor. It's similar to sort of... I have no qualms about telling people I don't drink. You know what I mean? That never bothered me. Mm-hmm. Because when I made that decision, or when I got sober, it wasn't even, there's no shame in that. You know what I mean? I was like, this is just what I'm doing. I don't bleed with it. I don't go around blasting it all over the place. Go, hey guys, I don't drink, because I'm not looking for a pat on the back. And acting is kind of the same for me. I've no shame about it. You know what I mean? I have found myself in the past justifying it. It was more to do with how I felt about me. You know what I mean? And it was more to do with my own sense of self-worth and self-esteem. I don't think it was necessarily to do with the question per se. But as my relationship to that has changed, my relationship to those types of questions has changed. And now I don't give a fuck, really. You know what I mean?
So say, for example, chit chat, and like I said, I admit, I'm not a chit chatter. But that being said, I'm able to get into that mode because of thinking about this stuff and this conversation right here.
I think parents, you are a chit chatter, though.
No, I absolutely not. You
can talk for hours.
Yeah, but I know, but that's the problem. That's not chit chat.
What's the difference? What's the distinction?
It's loosely floating around, figuring out what do we talk about. It's like, hey, Hey, wow, the weather's really nice these days. Oh yeah, uh-huh. Hey, do you see the traffic on the freeway? Wow. Yeah, where'd you come from? That's chit chat. That's not bad. I'm okay. I'm very comfortable chit chat. I don't stay in that zone very long. So my point is you give me something to chew on. Oh, I'll go on for 3.5 hours. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it switches modes between like a little deeper and more
Small talk.
engaging.
You mean
exactly,
like just
exactly.
small talk,
Chit chat
like-
is small talk. Chit chat to me is small talk where I don't hang around in small talk. I kind of get fidgety and I'm like, I should either go home or, back when I used to drink more, I get bored. I absolutely get bored. And to give another throwback to my dad, because I think I get it from him, I realize my dad cannot do chit chat. His idea of small talk and chit chat is, you know what's going on in Ukraine and Russia? This is the problem. That's the entry point to a stranger on the street. And so
Right.
that's giving
So there's
you
a
an
happy
idea.
medium in there somewhere.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So my point is can we get to a medium where, oh yeah, I'm an actor. Oh yeah, I lived down in LA for a handful of years. So that's kind of like where I am, where can we keep the answers short, to the point? It's not emotional, and it's just moving on to the next topic. If someone's toxic, or if you have a toxic relationship with a close friend or a family, that's a different situation and that gets loaded. But if we're actually just speaking practically, if it's a short interaction, I don't take any offense necessarily. I usually just assume that they're curious. If they're coming at you a little like there's a, trying to one up you, that might, you might need to dodge and swerve a teeny bit, but it's not necessarily loaded if it's quote unquote just small talk. You know what I mean? And I will lie sometimes. I 100% will lie.
Oh, I know.
It's not because I'm embarrassed to be an actor. It's because I don't want to be in a 10-minute conversation explaining to them the intricacies of the industry. I'll tell them I'm a heart surgeon. 100%.
Yeah, like I've talked to people about you before, and they're like, he plays for the Yankees, and I'm like,
I'll tell them I'm an anesthesiologist, veterinarian. Are we in small talk mode, and where are we going with this? You know what I mean?
I think that as you were talking there, something occurred to me. I think actors, and this is a very broad brush stroke, but a lot of actors, in my experience, have a lot of insecurities, and it's kind of the thing of, I don't know a ton of actors who are really pleased with their work a lot. I think a lot of actors are quite self-critical, and a lot of them, I don't know too many actors that come away from anything going, fucking nailed that. I don't think that's a great place to be either.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a very healthy
There's
approach
balance
to
and
it.
moderation and all of that.
There
right?
is balance. I don't think you should beat the shit out of yourself, but I also, because it is.
See, this is the thing. You are talking
about.
you're talking about craft when I'm talking about, hey, this is a small conversation with Auntie at the cranberry sauce. You know what I mean?
I think they're related though. I think they are related because it comes from how you feel about you and how you feel about what you do. I don't think they're disconnected. And while I love acting and I love talking about it, and I'll get into the weeds with it with people if they want to talk about it. I think some of it is my relationship to. It's just a sort of a general profile of how actors tend to be. Like a lot of actors overthink things. A lot of them judge themselves quite harshly. We live in an industry where you won't get a job for a million different reasons, and you'll most likely never get to know any of those reasons. So there is a lot of questioning in it.
I think it's one of those things, and part of the reason why we're discussing this, I think it's a muscle that can be trained. I think I've gotten to the point where I actually have become disconnected from it. And to be honest,
That's great.
it makes life great. This is actually in a lot of good ways. It's not comfortable all the time. This is actually kind of our job. It's not too dissimilar to an actor needing to get media training, PR training. They're dealing with conversations. They have maybe some things that they need to discuss, some points that they want to bring up. It's actually a kind of good skill. And 100% I know some actors would disassociate a press junket for their Marvel movie than their actual craft. I feel like that's a muscle that
yeah.
you can kind of that we can kind of train. This kind of goes back to, and you know, you're gonna hate the fact that you brought this up, the whole Meryl Streep Zen thing. You brought up the comments saying that, you know, actors in a way are kind of the most Zen people because they're always forced to be exactly where they are, and that's not pleasant for a lot of people. That is very much part of our job in acting, but you know, in a way, if that can bleed off over into our private life, that's kind of what people strive for. That's what people meditate for, is to actually be okay in the moment, exactly where they are, meaning that I'm going into a holiday party with my aunt who completely always tries to make me feel like shit. And, you know, how do I navigate these two worlds, yet I am okay with my career where I am as an actor, yet I have to navigate this uncomfortable conversation. I think it's part of the world where, as time goes on, if an actor can handle this, whether it's feeling better about their self-worth and better about their career, and also directing the conversation into some, you know, sound bites, directing the conversation to, hey, I have no problem talking about this, or, you know, I know that this can end the conversation in a reasonable manner and we're not going to hate each other. I think that's a valuable skill, and it doesn't need to be emotional for me.
A great way. If you're not comfortable, if you're not zen and present, or if you haven't hit that point where you're not completely, you know, okay with talking about it in a certain way, ask people questions. Ask them questions. Be curious about them. And because people do generally like talking about themselves. You know what I mean? So I try and be interested in what other people do. And because honestly, like, I think that's a big appeal of acting. I think that's probably another trait of actors, is just that curiosity about people in general. That's what I always liked about even bartending, even working in a bar. I never give a fuck about the drinks particularly, you know what I mean? But I like people and I like talking to people. So that was the part of it that I was good at. And that's how I would make money from that, because I was interested in people. You can very easily turn it back on someone by asking them questions and getting engaged in what their lives are, you know, and really listen to them, because I think that's the easiest way out of this. There's a whole other, like you're talking about, like the media training analogy is good, because yeah, we do have to feel that question a lot of the time, and the more comfortable you are, the better you will feel, you know. And you don't want to take yourself too seriously, you know. At the end of the day, it's a job like anything else.
You know, a couple tips right off the bat is, like, always be working on something. So you don't have, you know, a series regular on a CBS show. What have you been working on? So this is a perfect example. Like, what have you been working on? Well, I just started writing. I really enjoy it. I am taking class. You know, and this is not bullshit. This is all real stuff. You know, it's not a bad time to check in. This is what I'm excited about. This is what I'm working on. You know, maybe it's not the greatest year, but is there any positives that you have to take away from it, and lean into that? I really love the fact that I love what I do, and I'm still doing it. Like, that's not a soundbite PR statement.
It's not all about your job too, you know what I mean? Like, your job doesn't have to define you. So I like that idea of, like, yeah, I'm doing this and this and this, and
and that is a very American thing. I think it does feel like an American thing where people identify as their work or their job, and that establishes who they are.
I think so. And also there's a bit of a cultural thing where in Ireland it's not that cool to talk about yourself, you know, in that way, or brag. There's a bit of that in Australia. They call it tall poppy syndrome, where if someone gets too tall, people like to cut them down. I don't know if it's quite like that in Ireland, but there's definitely a culture of don't make too much noise, don't draw attention to yourself, don't brag, you know what I mean? So there is some of that I've also had to work on letting go of, or overcoming a little bit, where I'm like, I don't want to bother people, because ultimately it's like sending out an email to a casting director or something. Like, my gut reaction is like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to make too much noise. But if you believe in what you do and you believe in yourself, you're doing them a favor too. Just be like, hey, I'm here. As long as, I think I think it's the energy that you go in with. As long as you're not going in begging or asking for something, needing something from somebody. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of psychology and cultural history that goes into that for me, and that has gone into overcoming that feeling of being okay talking about myself. And for you, I think you've had a slightly different path with it, so your relationship to it is slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. Another side benefit of this podcast, I'm not looking to talk about the industry really to anyone in my personal life. like honestly, if someone wanted to know an insider to my life, I was like, dude, episodes wherever you find your podcast every Monday. Like I have plenty to direct them to that you could check this out. I've talked enough. And in my personal life, my parents have no need to understand how the industry. They absolutely don't. They need to know that I'm eating. That's really all that they care about. I'm just trying to think. What are the worst questions? The worst questions. So you brought up a good one before. Have you been in anything that I know? See,
that's such a vague question.
That's a very specific. That's a very specific question that I agree. You're walking into a minefield. I agree. I mean, you hear famous actors talk about like this is a no-win question. So I agree. That one is a loaded time bomb. I don't think there's any easy answers unless you were, unless you're Robert Downey Jr. But it's funny because that implication is impress me. And I agree. That's a no-win situation.
It assumes a certain level of familiarity with what they know too, and it's like there's an acceptable level of visibility. Like, what have you been in that I would have seen? I don't know what the fuck you would have seen.
The alternative would be like, well, I'm the star of a CBS sitcom. Yeah, I know. It's on Fridays at 10 p.m. Sorry that you don't know it, but I'm doing really well for myself. Do you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't need for me to please you because there's always going to be another hurdle for our self-esteem to need to jump.
Yeah, I think I need a response to that that doesn't come off as me bristling at the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a humorous deflection from it, because a friend of mine as a joke was talking about, we did this movie together, and another friend of mine go, "Oh, where can I see it?" And his response was so fucking good. He's like, I think those screens on gas pumps at gas stations. I think you probably see it on that. It's just it's a great response.
Any last thoughts about this?
I think it's good to talk about this stuff, because for me it helps me understand where I'm at with it, just where I'm at with my own sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and which can fluctuate. You know what I mean? I can feel great about everything I'm doing, and my circumstances, the external circumstances of my life, can remain the same over a period of time. How I feel about them changes dramatically. So I have to, this is why I do certain things to kind of bring me back to center. Like, I can have days where everything has felt like a colossal failure, and I have days where I think this is just I get to live this amazing life, and I try and stay in that as much as possible. But I'm human, and it sometimes veers into the other thing. So, but it's always fascinating to me how the external circumstances can be the same, and just how I feel about them changes. And again, not take it or myself too seriously. You know what I mean? I've heard people say, I take the work very seriously. I don't take myself very seriously. And I think that's a great place to be,
That's a great point. I'm going to throw this out there. This very well could be a hidden gem. I don't know if it's going to make the cut, but if you're still listening, this is something that I tried to explain in class. Eyes glazed over. So I'm going to try to relay this, as easy as possible. So this is a story, or essentially a metaphor from Nassim Taleb, who's a brilliant author, Black Swan, Anti-Fragility. He's a genius. He's also a mathematician. So he made this argument saying, the cab driver is actually safer than the corporate worker. So our entire lives, we were feeling ashamed or scared because, oh, well, acting is an unstable profession. I mean, good luck. That's going to be tough, right? So we've always had this preconceived notion that, hey, this is a really unsafe occupation. It's really tough for all these actors and writers, and you never know when the next paycheck is. But the point is the cab driver is actually incredibly robust. He's incredibly, it might not be stable, but because there's some good days, there's bad days. If one customer is lost, it's a small error because you can find many, many customers that you can make money off of. Your livelihood does not depend on one customer, okay? So in a way, it's robust, okay? A corporate worker believes that their job is incredibly stable. Of course, that's the whole definition of stable. They are incredibly stable. But the worst part is it's fragile. There's a recession. Your company goes out of work. You get laid off. This is a story that's old as before the pandemic. Okay? So just imagine the pandemic is a perfect example of, hey, your job that was incredibly stable, good luck. It was very not fragile. You know what I mean? So my point of all this stuff is I kind of knew this for years. I actually was incredibly comfortable with how our lives were. I'm also kind of insane if you didn't know, but dealing with the high volatility of the actor profession, I was actually fairly comfortable in this world because I knew it was robust. Meaning that when the strikes happen, yeah, okay, we've been through some bad days and you get through it. When, corporate, the studios are cratering or, jobs are leaving the States or whatever. We've seen things happen. You know what I mean? The 2008 recession collapse or what have you. One thing after another. I actually want to say that we are actually really robust. And so I think it's a really big bright side. This is meant to be encouraging, everyone.
It's interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking about that as you said it. Yes, in some ways, the having a sort of an unpredictable, unstable job gives you a degree of resilience. It also reinforces the fact that it's kind of, there's a gambling element to it because you never know what's coming, and I love that about it. I really like the potentially life-changing job that could transform your whole. However, two things. One, you and I specifically aren't putting kids through school or college and putting food on the table for a family. So the unpredictable nature is a little bit easier to navigate when you don't have other people who are depending on you getting a job.
Oh, 100%.
However, if you're earning $250,000 a year for a few years, you grow accustomed to a certain level of comfort that a lot of actors don't have access to or don't enjoy because it's about staying in it and trying to get the next job. So your day-to-day is really your experience of life. So you can go, yeah, this is a great, this is robust, this industry, and it'll continue to be. But if your day-to-day is like you're adding up every penny and you're looking at, okay, can I afford to go grocery shopping today, or can I fill a full tank of gas? Or
so robust is able to deal with fluctuations and minor shocks. But you're completely right.
Sure.
There's higher degree of danger and reward with the acting industry for sure.
It's hard to live a very full life without money, just in this world, because a lot of things depend on it. There's a lot of comfort and a lot of security that comes with having money. It's not a guarantee of anything, and it doesn't inoculate you from, tragedy or loss or anything like that. But it does make your day-to-day experience more comfortable, and in that comes a feeling of security. I think it's like when people talk about, the economy's doing great. Well, if I can't do anything like if I'm worried about my finances all the time, I don't give a fuck how the economy's doing, because my day-to-day is the only thing that I know. And that speaks to your conversation about being present in the moment. I can only go on how my experience of life is, where people talk, oh, isn't it great that the stock market's doing this? It doesn't matter to me if I go to the grocery store and I'm like, God, everything here is really expensive. So yeah, I get it. Theoretically, I understand it, and I get the point, but I also don't think it's of a huge amount of comfort to people day to day necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Challenge of this is comparing income streams to this scenario when it's actually less about the amount of money that they have and more about the volatility. Well, obviously, I don't have kids. I don't have a family to raise. You're right, but I have made that choice for myself where it's a slam dunk. I'd rather be the cab driver. I mean, that's kind of like what we're saying here. I mean, this is a choice that I have made, and I'll make it, 9 times on Sunday.
There's a reason. Well, I don't work a corporate job because I never wanted to work a corporate job. I want to do this thing, and that's why. So I have no regrets about that. But it doesn't mean that anybody's quality of life is any better, or it is a bit of an abstraction to say, well, your industry is fragile.
This is just one bright side. This is that's the funny thing. It's like, Rían, I'm trying to lighten up here. Literally this year. Now, obviously, I don't want to make light of this. The government was getting gutted. The most stable job was vanishing. And I looked to my dad and I said, see, aren't you happy that I'm an actor? I'm the only one who's safe. I did get him on that one. He got a good chuckle. This is exactly what was going through my head. I don't know if that, obviously I don't want to make light of it.
Yeah, sure.
Email us, actorsguidepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. This is a really hidden gem. It was my dad's birthday over the weekend. Small benefit. I'm over here for Thanksgiving. I'm usually not over here this time of year. I was looking for a cake. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and a lot of places were closed. I went to a random pastry shop literally down the street from my house. So hardcore Italians in my neighborhood, so you can find some good Italian pastries. Gina Nino's cannoli donuts, and which was fun. So cannoli and a donut.
Cannoli
obviously.
donuts.
Yeah,
Do they call them cannonuts?
No, that would have been clever though.
Donolis.
And then also, I can never say this word. Sfogliatella. Do you ever? Okay, you don't know. Anyway, delicious Italian pastries in South Jersey. I'll put the information in the description if you happen to be from New Jersey. But my dad was blown away. I told him I can't tell you the location. My dad would be going there every day if he knew it was right down the street. But it was that good. So that's a true hidden gem from New Jersey, everyone.
Great stuff. My hidden gem is somewhat location specific as yours was, but it's a friend of the podcast and wonderful actor, Mickey O'Sullivan. Offers classes. Mickey's a brilliant actor. He's done a ton of work. His resume is very impressive and extensive.
We'll get him on soon.
But he is, so in addition to Leslie Kahn, which is, a wonderful place to be if you're in LA, if you're in Chicago and fancy doing some in-person classes, Mickey is offering a bunch of spots in he has a 6-week on-camera technique class, which is not for beginners. He's a 4-week ongoing on-camera practice, a 2-week business boot camp. And I will say about Mickey has always been very innovative and curious about better ways to approach the business side of acting, and he does it so well, and it shows in his career and it shows in his approach. But he's always really impressed me in how he approaches the business side of this industry. So you can get in touch with him. He has a website. I think it's mickeyosullivan.com. That's MICKEYOSULLIVAN, as you might have expected. Nice. But mickeyosullivan.com, or you can find him on Instagram, and he has links, I think, on Instagram. It's at the Mickey O'Sullivan. That's his, so THE Mickey O'Sullivan.
What were the dates for this? This is all through December?
So this is, I think, these are for January. So these would be starting in January. He has business boot camps, I think, starting in the first week of December and in the last week of December into January. So But he does them periodically. But he is, if you are looking to get into a class and benefit from his years of experience and his approach to teaching, which I think is great, and you're in Chicago, Mickey O'Sullivan is a guy to check out. So
there you go.
Friend of the podcast, personal friend, and great actor. So
that's great. As far as the location specific, first of all, Chicago is obviously a pretty big city. We have as much listeners in New Jersey than New York. We actually might have more listeners in New Jersey than New York. So we have listeners all over the world, everyone. That's our show. If you're not celebrating holidays, if you are, hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.